Hi, everyone. This is Heather Hodges. I'm an organizational psychologist. Welcome to my show. This is the place where we say I'm in to creativity, bold thinking, transformational growth, and meaningful conversations. Hello, everybody. I am so excited about this conversation today because we have a friend of mine, Caleb Panter, on the podcast. Caleb is the courage coach and the founder of the Momentageous Movement. He is a transformational leader, motivational speaker, and financial strategist who empowers discouraged dreamers to live boldly and with purpose. And through his faith-driven approach, Caleb inspires individuals and organizations to overcome fear and connect with their whole hearts and turn moments into momentum. You're about to see why I say this, but Caleb is known for his authenticity and his heartfelt energy. He's a catalyst for change and helps his clients and audiences step into their best selves and take action, one courageous moment at a time. Caleb is married to Addie and dad to Charlie and Rhett and is a proud dog dad to Biscuit. Caleb, welcome to the show.
Oh, it's so good to be here, Heather. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you bet. And when I asked you to be on the podcast, you said, I'm in.
Yep, I'm in. I'm in. It's on brand. It's on brand to answer that way.
Love it. Well, you are known as the courage coach. So what does courage mean to you? And why do you believe it's such an important quality to embrace? Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, let's back up for a second. You know, I think George W. Bush was known for giving others nicknames, but I don't know if it's okay to give yourself a nickname. So I just have to be full disclosure that, like, some would say I'm known for that, but that's what I started describing myself as, because people would ask me, like, well, what do you do? How do you coach? What do you lead people to? And so, I've started by really putting myself out there, which requires vulnerability, which is something that's really important to me. But as a courage coach, because I think the world needs people to be honest about their reality, but also, Heather, to be able to say, hey, I may be just one step ahead of you. And that requires courage as well. And so what I think helps me think about courage the best is really Brene Brown's definition that really incorporates the original intent of the word courage, which was a heart word, and it was core, and it's wholehearted. And so if you're around me for any time and I'm at my best, I'm going to challenge you and myself, invite you and myself to be wholehearted, because I think that is the only way to really show up as a human. And if I'm just being gut level honest, it's been the challenge of my life.
Oh, that's good. And I definitely want you to be gut level honest. But the root word of courage is Latin. It's cor.
Yep. That's right.
Heart. Yeah. Yep. I love it.
So
courage is wholeheartedness.
Yeah.
So you're the work of a lifetime, becoming wholehearted. And so tell me more about that. How does that play out in your world? Well,
I had everybody that I've talked to either has a real clear story about their name, or they're like, yeah, I have no idea why I was named what I'm named. But my parents I'm the oldest of 4 boys. And so my parents named all of us a biblical name. So Caleb, Adam, Luke, and Andrew. And so I got the name Caleb. And I don't know if it's nature or nurture. We could argue about that forever. But somewhere early in my formation, I realized what Caleb meant. And it meant bold. It meant loyal. It meant wholehearted. It also means dog. And so I gained an appreciation early on in life, Heather, that I needed to live into that name. But as is appropriate to growth and maturity and learning, I didn't always live into it. And so I've felt both a burden and a responsibility to not just live into that name, but really embody the biblical character of Caleb in the story of Joshua and Caleb, and to be able to say, hey, we're being sent out with other spies and we're going to come back and tell the truth. And the truth is it's going to be hard, and they're big, and we don't know what we can do, but we know who we serve. And so let's go. And I have just, for my whole life, I'm 42 years old. I've felt the burden and the pressure and the opportunity and responsibility to live into that name. And so that's created a tension for me of knowing when I'm showing up half-hearted and knowing when I'm showing up insecure, which we all do. But for me, to really learn how to lead myself first, so that I can lead others well, has been a journey of trying to show up and making that shift from half-hearted to wholehearted.
Gosh, you've said so much there that I just resonate with. Well, first of all, I love the name Caleb. In fact, I named my firstborn son Caleb.
Yeah.
So that's
no pressure, Caleb, right?
Yeah. love that name. And for all the reasons that you are living into your name now and your, the birthright of that name. And gosh, what honest about the reality of the tension that you're living into, and how true is it that the hardest person we will ever lead is ourselves? Yeah. That's great. Okay. Tell me about Momentageous. What does that mean to you? And how did you come to realize it's important into living this bold, intentional life of ours?
Yeah. Not everybody wants to have a brand, or not everybody feels the need to create a brand. But as a self-identified 3-wing 4 on the Enneagram, it's probably appropriate that I would have some kind of identity marker. And so we can hack that later. But here's the truth. I was at the Catalyst conference in 2011. The theme was be present. And I was there desperate. I was there stuck. I was there in pain. I had never experienced anything like that from a faith-based standpoint. At the time we were living in Oklahoma City. So Oklahoma City was bigger than the town of Sulphur Springs that I grew up, but Atlanta was way bigger than Oklahoma City. So I was in the big city, and I just felt an incredible amount of inspiration and really sort of a divine moment of just, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. And as the conference unfolded, one of the presenters, I can't remember who it was now, but one of the presenters demystified, and this goes along with your podcast, they demystified what creativity is. And they just said, hey, creativity is when you take two different things and combine them. And I was like, well, okay, then I'm a creative, because I've been doing this my whole life, but I didn't know how to play an instrument. I didn't know, I wasn't necessarily an artist or anything like that. So in the mediums that most people use to establish themselves or show themselves as creatives, I had always done it through like organizational charts and vision casting and dreaming, that kind of thing. And so in that moment, I think I had this deep clarity that, okay, well, I'm a creative. And, okay, so I'm coming into this reality of, this is who God's created me to be. I'm getting a little bit more confidence in that. And I just had this sort of moment with the Lord. I remember exactly where I was sitting in that arena. It was like the light shone down on me. I don't say that to be dramatic. I just say that to be honest. And I remember thinking, okay, if I get to the end of my life and I have lived if I've lived into my name, one moment at a time, then I'll be okay. I can look back, however I end up passing through, I can look back and be content. And I don't know if it was divine inspiration. I credit it to that, but the literally courageous in the moment hit me. And I was like, courage moment, courageous moment, momentageous. And so since 2011, that phrase has just haunted me and inspired me. And so eventually, after saying it to enough people and realizing that it was sticky, I decided to just sort of marry it. And here we are.
Wow. Courageous in the moment, haunted and inspired you. Wow. The Catalyst conference, I don't think I was at the 2011 Catalyst conference, but it was at a Catalyst conference where I first saw somebody paint on stage.
Yeah.
And that inspired me I was like, I can do that. First of all, it was so powerful.
Was it the Jesus painter or who was it?
No, it was several other painters. It wasn't the
Wow.
Jesus painter, but he was the first person I saw
Sure.
paint on stage. No, there was that stadium there in Atlanta.
Oh, yeah.
And I've only been to one Catalyst conference, but there were several artists on stage painting, and I was like, oh, I can't get enough of this. And so that was I've had the same inspirational moment at that conference that you did. That was life changing. That there was something. It's taken me, I don't know, 15 years to get here, but you've done it a lot faster. Well done, Caleb.
Well, I mean, let's see, 2011. I'm competing with it. You were there, 13 plus years. So.
Yeah, it's been a while, but so Momentageous is being courageous in the moment.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I mean, here's the catch is not everyone's courageous moment is the same.
Yeah.
So some people, and I think this allows for flexibility. Sometimes this word courage can get, like we talked about, it's really wholehearted. So can I be present? Can I be integrated? Can I be wholehearted in every moment? There's a kingdom component to that as well. As can I be aware of what God is up to in those kingdom moments, and can I move with kingdom courage? But the reality is for every person, they have to go through a discernment of what courage is for them. So for some people, courage is stepping into something. Mm-hmm. For others, it's stepping out of something. For some people, it's this could be a silly example, but some people it's, hey, read the story to your kid at night when you don't want to. And for others, it's don't read that story. There's not a right or wrong around courage. It's a matter of whether or not we're giving ourselves permission to ask, am I present? Am I aware of the moment? And am I moving with intentionality? Mm-hmm. And so it's more expansive than just, am I going to be a hero or a superhero in every moment and put on my big cape and show up like Superman? No, it's really like, am I going to be brave enough to be present? Am I going to be brave enough to self-attune, which is something I'm learning to do, to understand where my nervous system is right now? Am I going to be brave enough to say the hard thing, or am I going to be brave enough to keep my mouth shut? There's no right answer, but it requires a discernment and an awareness that I think a lot of people struggle with, myself included, because we're moving through the world so fast and we're disembodied in so many ways.
Mm-hmm. Gosh, way to break that down for us. I mean, like a while ago, you were talking about how creativity is simply connecting two things. Courage and being brave in the moment can mean a lot of different things. I think we need to, as you said, it doesn't always mean running into a burning building to save somebody. It could be picking up the phone. It could be walking down the hall. It could be that moment where you say, okay, I'm going to forgive this other person. That's a courageous moment.
Yeah. It's funny you said run into a building, because one of the examples that I like to use is when you have, so there's a matrix that I use to help me think through this, but when you have high courage but low awareness, then you're the guy or gal that runs into the building but doesn't realize that everybody's already been rescued.
Yeah.
And so, but again, you have to have awareness coupled with that boldness to do something. And a lot of times, again, going back to how we were formed or what lessons we learned or how we interpreted those lessons, we all have a default sort of kind of way that we move in the world. And in order to be courageous, a lot of times we have to do the opposite action of that. So for those of us that like to be sped up and go, 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 we have to slow down. For those of us that like to be slowed down, sometimes we have to speed up when it's uncomfortable. But again, it's about really taking the time to be connected to ourselves, connected to others, connected to God, for those of us with a Christian faith, to say, hey, what's going on right now? And how can I be courageous in this moment? And then the beauty of it is that I like to use this phrase, momentum comes from a collision of courageous moments. So momentum happens when we when courageous moment after courageous moment after courageous moment collide. And it's in that collision, again, creativity, where two things collide, that something is birthed that wasn't possible before. How about them apples, Heather? Come on.
Yeah. Them apples are we're swimming in deep waters now, Caleb.
I'm so glad to be able to help talk about this.
How momentum comes from a collision of courageous moments. And
Can I give you a picture?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. You ever, I grew up in a small town that had a bowling alley, right? So the arcade, you ever have that arcade machine that you drop the quarter in and all those quarters are in there on the edge, and like once every 6 months, somebody drops a quarter in and all the quarters drop? That's momentageous.
That's momentageous.
That's momentageous.
So we're building up these courageous moments until there's a waterfall.
That's right. Got
it. I love it. It's good stuff. Well, like I said, there's so much in there that I want to talk about. First of all, I love to know that you're an Enneagram 3, which means that you are prone to action. Like you have goals, you want to set the goal, you want to go for it, goal after goal. And so when we think about our personalities and momentageous and courageous moments, you're right. Sometimes being courageous means not acting. It means being still. It means hold, wait, be present. And sometimes it means stepping forward into something that you're terrified of, but you need that one brave moment to change a life, change a moment, change a trajectory, change the momentum. So I think that is, gosh, that's rich, Caleb. That's so powerful. Now, I also hear you using a lot of God language, a lot of faith language. And, we both come from a background of faith. So, your work is rooted in faith and intentional living. So talk to us about how your faith has influenced your approach to leadership and your ability to guide others towards transformation.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think I could go about this in two different ways based on the setup of the question and what we just talked about. Because in a lot of ways, I have never not known faith. And so I don't by any means bemoan that or I think that's a privilege in a lot of ways. And so there's a maturation process that I'm still going through that would require me to continue to choose to die to myself over and over and over, to live that cruciform life in order to really put my trust fully in Jesus. And, I think that requires us to be momentageous as well, for what it's worth. There's the other piece, though, that when, like I grew up in the church, that's a funny phrase to some, but what that means is my parents, if you know, you know. But what that means to others, for others, is that my parents just had us at church when the doors were open every time, and we served. There's just our whole community was church, and so growing up in church and falling in love with Jesus, and also growing up, literally, has a lot of complexity to it, and so with that 3-winged 4. I'm also prone to deceit. And so part of the reason that I am a go-getter and I get things done or I attempt to activate things is as a protective mechanism against some of the pain that I felt in my life. And so one of the things that I'm really trying to do right now as it pertains to my faith is to be more honest about the deceit part of my life. The times when that's been malicious and the times when it's been unintentional but still deceitful. And so as I've been thinking back upon my life in the last year, as I've thought over the last year about my life, there have been some moments where I think I've had to come to repentance in a new way, where I didn't try to explain away or offer my intention around some of the mistakes that I've made, which I feel shame about and guilt about, but that I owned them and said, in spite of my faith, I still chose to make these poor decisions. And that's allowed me to be more honest with myself, which I think in turn has allowed me to allow myself to heal in some ways and to receive some forgiveness at maybe a different depth than I had allowed myself to experience. And so the way that faith really plays into my life is that I think I could get a lot of things done with just my personality and with the way I'm wired. But I'm actually starting to believe John 15, where he says, you can do nothing good without me. And so when John calls us to abide in Christ, I am making this shift that seems natural to some, but for me, it's just sort of been a growth process to actually believe what he's saying there, which is, hey, you might be able to get a lot of things done, but you can get nothing good done without abiding in Christ. And so that's the real place where my faith is having the most impact right now, which in turn, I think allows me to move into the world differently and have a different, I think it sets me up to have a new way of interacting with others as I lead them, as I walk with them, as I take on new risks in my own professional life and personal life. I mean, I think it allows me to move with a different kind of tenderness that I haven't always had. So I don't know how people do it without faith. And yet I have a deep respect for people that are new to that journey or trying to figure that out. That's not an invalidation of somebody's doubt or their faith journey. It's just, I can't imagine not having a North Star that is bigger and more creative and unexplainable in some ways and mysterious in some ways. Like, I don't want to be able to serve a God that I could write the story of.
Right.
And every time I read scripture, I'm like, I couldn't have written this story. And that might sound arrogant, but I need God to be that big.
Yeah.
Because we live in a world where we can create endless possibilities, but no one's matched God yet. Everyone's just imitated. And so I think faith plays a huge role in being a creative, but much less being a leader who's called to walk with others and help them attempt to be transformed as well.
I think one of the first things I heard you say, in your answer was about your personality, your Enneagram type, as a 3 with that strong 4 wing. The vice of 3s is deceit. And a lot of times that deceit comes in deceiving themselves. And, that you're on this journey of just intense reality and honesty with yourself, which means also reckoning with the Lord. And, what does that mean in your life, in your work? Gosh, Caleb, that's powerful.
Well, I'll tell you what it meant 2 nights ago.
What did it mean?
It meant being on my knees saying, I have no clue what I'm doing. I mean, just truthfully, it's just like, and it's not like, oh, Caleb, I'm such a pious prayer. I get on my knees. No, I get on my knees when I'm desperate. And I was on my knees 2 nights ago going, the math's not adding up. I don't know how to do this. Yet I feel a deep sense of responsibility to the journey you have me on. And I know you want me to plant seeds. But I am in a deep desperation for you to not just grow those seeds, but that those seeds would turn into things that are bigger than what I could create on my own or design on my own. And so that's where that journey is taking me right now. And it's painful.
The courage to walk by faith.
Yeah. I mean, what a great sign to paint on a wood board at Canton, but then to actually live that out. Holy cow. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. Oh, wow. Well, let's talk about your family a little
Yeah,
bit, Caleb. So you mentioned that your wife Addie and your kids, and even Biscuit, the dog, helps
that's
you lead with authenticity and purpose. I got to hear about more about Biscuit, but also your family. So how do they inspire and shape your work as the courage coach and in your momentageous movement?
yeah. So some really cool things are happening. Addie and I both in 2024 walked away from W-2 jobs. We both felt different stirrings around that, and really of the all. I don't know if we wrestled, but we definitely wrestled, and we're still wrestling through all that. I mean, we had a meeting this morning in our kitchen where we're organizing our life and talking about the different projects that we're working on. And so, I met Addie when I was 19 years old. She was 17. And so I don't know I don't know an adulthood. I don't really know a life without her. And she's incredible. And so in this last season, I stepped away from a pastoral job. It was the right thing to do. It was, I think, the healthy thing to do. I think it was kind to do for that church, so that they could spread their wings in some ways. And I felt very convicted by that, and I was thankful for how they helped me transition. And then Addie walked away from in some ways, a dream job as well, because she felt a deeper stirring that God had answered her prayer and that He had shown her what she needed to see so that she could step out on her own. And so we're in a new phase. The Panter family's in a new phase where we are, like you said, walking by faith, but and also walking with intentionality. And so we actually, sort of through her work at addiepanter.com and through my work at calebpanter.com, where we sort of house our individual initiatives. Addie does a lot of, Addie's an incredible, and I imagine she'll be on the show at some point, but
I can't wait to have her.
You will like her more than you like me, Heather. And that's, but Addie is
that's saying a lot, Caleb.
She's incredible. She's a pastor to pastors. And so she literally in our house right now, she's on a call with a vocal coaching client, and she works with worship pastors primarily. And she does vocal training with them, but really she helps them grow in their character and competency. And if you're going to lead people, you have to grow in character and competency. Yeah. That's just a reality. And so Addie does that. We're getting to work on some projects together. We're playing a fractional role at a church in East Texas where we're their interim worship arts director team, and we're helping build a leadership structure there so that they can move toward the vision of the senior pastor. So yeah, that's a lot of fun and challenging and dysregulating and all the things that come with that. But then my daughter is Charlie. She's amazing. She's auditioning for Guys and Dolls on Sunday. She loves the theater and is really following in Addie's footsteps of being a vocalist and charting her own territory. She is 100% the love of my life and the mirror of what it had to be like on the other side of me as a kid. And so I think God has a sense of humor about that. And then Rhett, man, he's 7 and he's into Harry Potter and anything that has a basketball or football, and he's awesome. And then you asked about Biscuit the dog. Biscuit the dog is proof that people can change, because I swore to never have a dog. We went to look at a dog, and now we have a dog. And Biscuit's been an incredible addition to our house. The real crux of your question, though, is around this, Heather. I don't want to be known as someone who leads others better than I lead my family. And I think for so many times of my life, I've shown up the worst version of myself with my family and been deceitful and presented the best version, or the attempt to be the best version of myself, to everyone else. And that's changing. That's shifting. And that's a painful shift as well, because that requires me to be more disciplined and boundaried and more honest with myself about my limits and what I want to do, and to be able to show up with something that's not as natural to me with my family, which is that gentleness and that tenderness and that that real compassionate posture that it just doesn't come natural to me. And so I have to work really hard to do that. It doesn't mean that I don't feel it on the inside. It's just that it doesn't come out that way. And I'm having to really learn through a lot of pain and through a lot of failure and mistakes that's what my family needs. And that's how I need to show up. So in a lot of ways, like a lot of people have written about and talked about, but our families are, the crucible, whether it's our marriage or our families, they're the crucible of discipleship. And that's absolutely true in my life as well.
No, but you're speaking truth about something that we all struggle with is where are we giving the best parts of ourselves? And showing up for our families requires discipline and boundaries and, energy. And are we spending all of that at work and being depleted by the time we get home and our families are left with the dregs? Or are we giving the best to our families and leading our families well and showing up for them in the best ways possible? I mean, gosh, Caleb, there's so much reality to that.
Yeah. And when I say that out loud, others match me with the same story often. And so like, I'm not alone in that. It's just, I know the full pain of my own journey in that. And so, I had, like we all do, make commitments to myself that I wouldn't multiply my brokenness and that I won't do things like this. And the truth is I've done every one of them. And I know that I'm not alone in that, but I just know the particular pain that's caused.
Yeah.
And that is not a legacy that I want to leave on that trajectory. And so, while it's not probably the healthiest to say every action that our kids take is a direct reaction from our lives, I mean, I think there's a posture that we have to have of curiosity around that, of saying, where did they learn that? And it's like, oh, yeah. If I'm the primary discipler in our family with my wife, like they saw it from one of us. And so, repair is a big thing in our house because we're going to have disconnection. But I definitely want my kids and my wife, I want to be an old man with this woman. And that's not a path that comes easily with arrogance and pride. And so a lot of repair has taken place in our house because there's been damage done. And, if the legacy is repair and the legacy is, hey, my dad said sorry a lot and meant it, cool.
We can live with that.
Yeah.
Gosh, you're reminding me, as a psychologist, I get to read a lot of research, and you're reminding me of some old research now. It's from the 60s. You'll remember this. Albert Bandura did research with modeling and how children take on the behaviors of the adults. And do you remember the Bobo doll? Where like it was like, take that, Bobo. There was a study that was done where the parents would come in and they had this big inflatable doll, and the parents would hit the doll, take that, Bobo, and then the kids would come in, and how would the kids treat the Bobo doll?
Oh,
take that, Bobo.
Of course,
And we're always teaching, we're always modeling, and what's that never stops as parents.
And what's harmful is when shame gets inserted into that pattern as well. And then that keeps us from stepping into that place of being contrite and being humble. And it's just so unfortunate to me that there was a whole generation, and I'm not saying it's gone, but I'm so thankful that there's new research, there's new literature out there, there's new thought in that, like, our strength doesn't come from bulldogging people and bulldozing people and like pushing through. People still attempt it, and there are certain realms of our world that clearly it still has an effect in. But I think the majority of the world is waking up to say there has to be a better way. And I'm learning, that I can control someone, but that doesn't mean that they have submitted to my authority. and or that they've even consented into the space that I've asked them to step into. No, they're just going to do what they think they need to do to get it done. And so much of my leadership as I move forward is going to be spent in working on not just getting a yes, but more of getting a consented, wholehearted, even, hey, we're in, we understand, and now we can move forward with clarity and courage and confidence versus just compulsion.
Yeah. Gosh, those words are so powerful. Like you have this reputation for sparking clarity and courage and confidence in community. And I'm curious, can you share a story or an example of how these three qualities have come alive in your work with a team or an organization?
Yeah. As I shared earlier, I think, Heather, one of the places that has come to fruition most recently is with me and Addie stepping out and into an uncharted territory of being entrepreneurs as a full-time thing. We've done it as a side hustle or whatever you want to call it on the side, but I think being able to take those gifts that I've used organizationally or with organizations or have attempted to use with organizations and then turn them back onto our family, frankly, has been clunky and awkward and weird at times. But at the same time, I think that's good. Whatever God has as part of my story, which I think is going to be really eclectic, and I'm very comfortable with that. Actually, that's sort of what I hope it is. I'm doing calls now about financial strategy and other things. If you'd have told me 5 years ago I was doing that, that wouldn't be even a part of my lexicon or awareness. And so I'm getting to use some of my gifts in areas that are being rebirthed and reimagined and different things. But I think all of those things that you said earlier in that question are now being turned toward our family, which as a result are now producing more regulated nervous systems because we're moving at a pace that's healthier for us. We're moving at a pace that allows us a little bit more autonomy. Now, it's a scarier pace because we're not guaranteed some of the stabilizers that we had or we thought we had in the past. But taking that clarity and that courage and pointing it back to our family, I think is a necessary step in our particular journey so that we can say, hey, this is how we've done it. This is how we've practiced it. Imitate us and then go innovate on your own. And so that's one way that I think it's happening. The other way that is just the most recent was last spring. I mean, it's real convenient to tell stories where you're the hero. That's not what I'm attempting to do, but I had a title of vision and development pastor at a church. And every time I would sit with the Lord about what the vision of the church needed to be, I couldn't see myself as part of that vision. And it wasn't that I didn't want to be there. I think I would have been long suffering up to the point of unhealth even. If that's what the Lord had asked me to do, I would have been obedient to that. But there was just a catch in my system that said, I have clarity that I'm not supposed to be here. And so in order to say that I'm living a wholehearted life, I had to take all those things that I've always encouraged others to do and literally turn them around and point them at myself and say, am I going to pretend my way through this? Or am I going to trust the Lord to step in or to step out of this for what could be, because he was clearly preparing somebody else to step into that space. And in some ways I say that, and that might sound dramatic or even like woo-woo or whatever. That wasn't that hard for me because I had done the work to gain clarity. Being courageous was difficult because it came with consequences. Yeah. But man, when you can help somebody, or when I've helped somebody gain clarity, they know what to do next most of the time. It's just a matter of managing the logistics and the timing and being honest with others about it. And so I do think that courage comes oftentimes on the other side of clarity. And then And then once we sort of make that step or that half step or even that, quarter step, then we get more and more confident as we move into that. And so it becomes less daunting.
Mm-hmm. So part of your work, or a lot of your work then, is helping your clients get clarity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have steps. Yeah. So, I mean, asking, a lot of coaches are good at asking good questions. Mm-hmm. And, we have our own background, our own theories. I mean, when you coach somebody or you're working with somebody organizationally, there's, a lot of organizations are textbook. And so you can see how they got into the situation they're in. You're not attached to it emotionally. So there's a way to go, this makes sense. But the real discovery process happens when I can walk in some ways, I can be the healthy nervous system or the non-anxious presence for that person to do the exploration that they either don't know how to do on their own or just haven't been intentional enough to do. And a lot of times I think my role as a coach or even a speaker, or even now in this new world of financial strategists where I'm connecting people to resources and products to help them steward and maximize their gifts. I think my job is to be a non-anxious presence for them, to ask them really good questions and to hold space for them and help them slow down long enough to just say, I wonder what's going on here. And so that in and of itself requires courage, but to be able to pause and to think in the fast-paced world that we live in is a rarity right now.
Mm-hmm. And as you said, to hold space and be a non-anxious presence. Those are powerful things.
Well, that was Jesus.
Yeah.
I mean, Jesus was a non-anxious presence. Even when he was turning over tables, he wasn't dysregulated. He knew exactly what he was doing. And so I think so many times Jesus entered into the world of someone and just held space for them and mirrored back for them and really said, hey, I have something better for you. And as a coach, if I could play a small part in restoration of someone's dreams, or bringing heaven on earth to their family system or to their life or to their organization, then that's the greatest privilege ever. It really is.
So Caleb, for those who are listening, who are feeling stuck or unsure about their next steps, what would you say to encourage them to take their first or next courageous moment?
I'd say give up. It's not worth it. I mean,
all right.
I think the world would say that, or the world would say, hey, let's just cover over that pain with something that makes you feel better. And I think I would really try to press upon someone who's stuck or trying to move in a different way or in a different direction, that there's a journey that they're going to have to go on. And that there's not a quick fix here. As a matter of fact, one of the talks that I do, Heather, is called Low and Slow in a World Full of Microwaves and Air Fryers. Ooh. And it's all about, like, we would never microwave a brisket.
Impossible.
That would be like sacrilegious. You don't do that, right? No one would air fryer a brisket who has any kind of integrity. No, we put the seasoning on it 24 hours in advance. We let it sit in the refrigerator. We fire up the smoker. We choose the right wood. We go through the low and slow process. We have the highest level of ingredients, inputs, variables possible so that we can produce something that we can slice and use as a hospitality vehicle. Mm-hmm. And I think the same thing is true for anyone who's wanting to grow. And that's what I would tell them is that, like, if you want to experience not just change in your life, but if you want to experience transformation, then it's going to take a long time. Mm-hmm. It's going to be a slow burn. And what I would strongly suggest to anyone who wants to go on that journey is that they have to go on that journey in community. So many of us have tried to change and experience transformation in isolation. And I would I would almost go as far as to say that it's impossible. Because I don't think that if we were created in the image of God, which is a community of itself, God, the Father, Jesus, the Holy Spirit, like it's an inherent community, 3 in 1. And so from the beginning of creation, we see a pattern where there's a community. And just to try to go at life and change and transformation and the toll that that's going to take in isolation would be a futile attempt. And so I think the first thing I would say is just, hey, let's reorient to what journeys of transformation look like. Like, let me play this out for you. Let me tell you about the time you're going to be high on the mountain and then you're going to be deep in the valley and you're going to go, am I taking 10 steps forward? What is that going to look like? So I would orient them to the journey, and then I would try to help them establish some kind of support system, community connection as quickly as possible so that when we start that deep work, they have people to walk with them. Because there's a million theories out there of how to get from point A to point B. And I think all of them have their validity. But if you do it without community and you do it without an awareness that it's going to be hard, it's going to be a tough road.
Yeah. So finding the community and that support system, avoiding isolation.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we've got deep work, and one of the tools I use for transformation is the Enneagram, and
Sure.
I always say that it's solo work, but you can't do it alone.
That's right.
It's interior work that requires community.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's a reason that AA and other recovery groups have been so successful. I mean,
we need support.
Let's not be so arrogant that we think we could do it on ourselves.
Yeah.
It just doesn't
We
work
need our
that way.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons I started this podcast is I know there are so many people out there who want to grow and want transformation and are looking for meaningful conversations and want to do it better today than they did yesterday and do it better tomorrow than they did today. But they are feeling alone or isolated. Yeah. And so let's come together.
That's right.
And let's do this, as a community. And I'm curious, Caleb, I love the Enneagram. I was taught by Suzanne Stabile, and I've been on this journey for a long, long time. How did you learn your Enneagram number?
Well, it's pretty faddish to know your Enneagram number. I'm right on the edge of millennial. I don't think you can be a millennial without knowing your Enneagram number. But the road back to you was a critical resource in that journey. Your Enneagram coach was another resource for that. And I think working in church circles, some people feel however they feel about the Enneagram. But for me, every personality assessment, if used in a healthy way where it's not a label, it's a framework, it's a way to see ourselves, it's a way to ask and be curious about ourselves, just gives us some insight. And so I again, part of my journey is feeling half-hearted, feeling stuck, feeling alone, feeling isolated, all those things. And so I've always had a deep desire to try to grow through that and grow past that. And anytime I was able to grab onto language or concepts or texture, if you will, that the Enneagram offers, then I could at least hold it up and go, maybe, no. And so I'm just really thankful that people have gone ahead of us and codified these things to give us a chance to reflect against them. And so that's really how I stepped into that, was just doing a deep dive through content that people had put out.
What was it about the Enneagram 3 that you recognized in yourself?
Yeah, the achiever is really high, and that like I said earlier, I'm the oldest of 4. Some of my strength finders are around restoration, individualization, activation, communication. There's one more in there. But so a lot of my life, I have been looked upon or at least I felt the expectation to be a leader. And somebody was asking me that this morning. I was working with a guy this morning, and he was saying, have you always felt that way? And I was like, yeah. He's like, did your parents put that on you? I was like, yeah, no, yeah. I don't know that like, it wasn't like we had a meeting one day and they said, y'all are going to be leaders. You know, it was just sort of like, well, I guess we're leaders. And so I always felt that impulse to lead. I felt that invitation. And I think some of that was just privilege, to be honest with you. Being a male in faith context afforded me some things that was not afforded to incredible leaders like yourselves and my wife and others. And so, you know, I always want to be cognizant that I received opportunities that others didn't. But part of that opportunity allowed me to be in situations, in phases of my life where I had not just had earned the right, but I wasn't ready for those situations. Mm-hmm. And so when I wasn't ready for them, but thrust into them, that was really painful. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't a victim to those circumstances. I stepped into them willingly, but I didn't know what I didn't know until I stepped into them. Yeah. And so a lot of that, that three achieving, like be in the right room at the right time kind of thing, move with activation, move with authority, was a strong suit of mine. But once I got in the room, then I realized like, whoa, am I just pretending here? Do I fit? Do I not fit? And so I think that that deceitful shadow side of the three really helped unlock some awareness for me. And then, you know, with your wings, the wing 4 is something that I really resonate with and identify with, because there are times that I can be pretty broody, negative, melancholy even. Mm-hmm. And what I've learned is that that's a need that's just not being met in my life, and I need to go to healthy places to be seen and to be known. And it requires me to practice healthy vulnerability or confident vulnerability to ask for what I need rather than wait for somebody else to meet the need that's not spoken. And so both of those have really helped me capture some growth places in my life that I desperately need to continue to grow in and have grown in.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Wow. It's interesting to me that the journey that you're on, you know, as a 3 smack dab in the middle of the heart triad. 3s are the most disconnected with their emotions. In fact, a lot of 3s find them to be, you know, extraneous. Like, you know, why would I need that emotion? Like, let me just suppress that or compartmentalize that over here. I'll come back to those emotions later. But you're fully leaning into the emotional part of your work and trying to live and lead more wholeheartedly. And that's so admirable, Caleb. That's fantastic. And, you know, you have both wings. Yes, your 4 wing is really strong. How are you growing your 2 wing right now?
I don't like helping people. I would rather just not. You know, I think when something comes natural, we don't appreciate it as much. And so I think probably that 2 wing is more active than I realize. But because I still have some of the shame that comes from the deceit that I'm working through in other places, I question my motives around that 2 wing. And so I think it's easier for me to step into the pain point of the 4 and identify with that than it is to really step into the beauty of what the 2 brings to the table. And so I think that's the growth, to be real honest with you, is to allow myself to be gentle and kind to myself, to say, hey, yeah, there have been moments of deceit, and that doesn't mean all of those moments were deceitful. There have also been moments where I've stepped in because it was the right thing to do, or I had pure motives or mixed motives at best. And that's okay because I took action on behalf of someone else. And so I think, you know, it goes really back to Momentageous, is if we're going to live a courageous in the moment life, it can't just be all about us. And so if we have eyes and ears to see those around us, then those tasks of service are not monumental tasks in that they require a lot of energy sometimes. It's just they require a lot of intentionality. And so I think just being able to have eyes and ears to see the needs around me and to step in when I can authentically, step in when I need to unnaturally. But to step in is the growth place.
Sounds like that is your courageous moment of growth.
Yeah.
Is growing in that direction. We didn't talk about that ahead of time. You didn't know I was going to spring
thanks for going there. Yeah.
those Enneagram questions on you. But if I get a chance to talk to somebody about Enneagram, we're definitely going there. And Caleb, this has been such a fun conversation. But before I let you go, my research assistant, Percy, the I'm in penguin, has a question for you. Percy, do you have that question for Caleb? Thank you, Percy. Okay. So Percy wants to know, Percy's giving me 2 questions. Thank you, Percy. So Percy wants to know, what's one moment of courage in your life when you said, I'm in, and it led to something extraordinary?
Yeah. So early in our marriage, I had brought some baggage into it and frankly, just some sin into it. And there was this moment where it's not like I was so noble that I had come to this moment of confession, but in some ways I had been caught. And I vividly remember the gut level feeling of knowing that I can lie about this again and get away with it, or I can practice something I've never done, which is to tell the truth about this and this particular situation, and then see what the next phase of the journey looks like. And so the real truth of the matter is that I think the I'm in moment was telling the truth. And then it required it has required hundreds of other I'm in moments post that. But that hinge moment, that hinge I'm in moment was me saying, well, I'm going to try something different. And I'm not going to keep doing it the way I've been doing it because it hasn't been producing the fruit that I want. And so, yeah, that was a huge I'm in moment. And really, I think without that moment, we wouldn't be sitting here today. It was so foundational to the shift in my life that's led us to where we currently are. That it was necessary. It was a necessary I'm in moment. Yeah.
Wow. So one small moment of courage changed your life.
Yeah. It definitely shifted the trajectory a couple of degrees that allowed for the potential. Yep.
Wow. Oh, thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
Caleb.
Thanks for asking.
Wow. You bet. Well, Percy has a second question, and his question is, he also wants to know, what is one question you would like to ask a future guest?
Oh, well, I mean, I love courage and I love hearing people's stories of courage. And so, I'll ask it this way. If you had to put a moment of courage in a coffee table book, like if you had a coffee table book about courage and you had to choose one moment from your life, which moment do you wish we had a picture of, and what would the story be?
Oh, that's good.
That's a fun one.
That's a good one. I will ask that of our next guest.
Awesome.
Well, Caleb, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and being vulnerable and authentic, and also just the practical tools that you have offered us. So I love your passion for living and leading wholeheartedly. I think that your work is truly inspiring. And I'm curious, how can our listeners find you? Like where should they go for more momentageous mentality?
Yeah, so there's a couple places. The main place would just be calebpanter.com. You can reach out to me. You can fill out a form there to figure out sort of what level of interest you have, whether it's hiring me as a courage coach. If you want to grow your finances or want me to connect you with some incredible people who are helping people steward their resources really well, I'd love to help you do that. Or if I could come in and motivate your team or speak for you, calebpanter.com. And then 2 other places, or really 3, it's just social media at Caleb Panter. I have a newsletter called the Momentageous Minute on LinkedIn that you can subscribe to. And I try to drop some things through Instagram and Facebook. It's all pretty consistent. If you see one, you see all of them for the most part. But yeah, so calebpanter.com or at Caleb Panter on any of the socials.
Great. Thank you. Yes. And I do subscribe to your newsletter. I get that.
I'm thankful for that.
You bet. Well, Caleb, thank you. And thank you to our listeners for joining us in this conversation. And if you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who could use a dose of creativity, inspiration, and more momentageous moments. So until next time, keep saying I'm in to creativity, bold thinking, transformational growth, and meaningful conversations. May you be wildly creative in your life and leadership. I'll see you soon.